You guys have been begging for this, so this is a Jungian analysis of Rasputin. To start off, the individuation process. In Carl Jung's psychology, individuation is really about becoming more yourself. It's the journey of growing into a whole, authentic person, not by chasing perfection, but by getting to know and integrate all the different sides of who you are. That includes not just your strengths and talents, like the positive aspects of yourself, like the things that you're good at, the things that are gifts and just your sort of natural ways about you, but also, in addition to all that, the parts of you that usually stay hidden. Okay, these are the darker things. These are things that people don't want to think about. These are your fears, your desires, and even your shadow. The beauty of this process is that it frees you from living only by what society expects. Instead, you begin living from a deeper center, a place where your conscious choices and your unconscious depths come into balance. That's like all the feelings you have underneath, those start to rise up and, become more in touch with your front brain, like frontal lobe processing, decision making, like the executive functioning of your person, the thoughts that you can choose to listen to or continue on, and the words that you say. So that's sort of your conscious depth, and it has to meet with the unconscious feelings and instincts that come up. Carl Jung put this beautifully when he said, quote, "The individuation process is the attempt of the self to become whole by integrating the unconscious into consciousness." Let's talk about the individual unconscious. This is like your personal basement of the mind. It's filled with forgotten memories, repressed feelings, and hidden desires. These are the parts of you that you don't always notice, but that shape your moods, choices, and dreams. It's private and unique to you. It's your own hidden psychological fingerprint. Separate that concept from something called the collective unconscious. That goes deeper. It's not just your basement. It's like the foundation under the entire neighborhood. It's a shared layer of the psyche that all humans inherit. This is containing universal symbols. They're archetypes like the mother, the hero, the trickster, the saint. These patterns surface in myths, religions, and art across all cultures, showing that beneath our differences, we carry the same psychological roots as each other. Okay, picture this. Russia, 1917. It's teetering on the edge of collapse. A crumbling empire, a restless people, and one man, this wild-eyed mystic in rags named Rasputin. He steps into the spotlight. Is he a saint or a sinner? Healer or fraud? To some, he was a holy fool, straight out of Russian legend. But to others, he was a dangerous charlatan who was tearing the empire apart. But what if Rasputin was more than a man? What if he was the living embodiment of Russia's deepest, darkest desires? Today, we're going to be diving into the Russian soul before 1917 through the lens of psychologist Carl Jung's psychology to uncover why Rasputin became the ultimate symbol of a nation on the brink. Buckle up, this is going to get wild. Hit that subscribe button and let's jump in. Russia in the early 20th century was a pressure cooker. The aristocracy lived in glittering palaces, but they were terrified of revolution. Peasants, only a generation removed from serfdom, they were freed in 1861. They were drowning in poverty and clinging to superstition. Everyone, from the elites to the poorest farmers, was wrestling with their own fears, desires, and faith, buried deep in their unconscious minds. But there was something bigger at play, a collective unconscious, a shared pool of myths and archetypes that shaped Russia's soul. Think saints who suffered for truth, martyrs who died for their beliefs, and Eurodivi, holy fools who were half mad, half holy, speaking riddles and shaking up society with their wild behavior. These figures weren't just stories. They were burned into Russia's imagination, showing up in literature, sermons, and village tales. Now, let's talk about the Holy Fool, or Eurodivi. These were Russia's spiritual rebels, people who acted crazy. They wore rags, and they broke every social rule, all while claiming divine wisdom. They were revered because of their madness, seen as God's messengers who exposed society's hypocrisy. The Russian Orthodox tradition loved these guys, and by the early 1900s, even the jaded aristocracy was obsessed with these figures as an anecdote to cold, modern life. Why? Because Russia was at a breaking point. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904-1905, it was a humiliating loss for Russia. The 1905 revolution shook the empire. War fatigue was crushing everybody, and beneath it all, Russia's collective unconscious was stirring. It was bubbling up with ancient images of saints, martyrs, and holy fools. Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, would say that this was no accident. These archetypes were Russia's way of grappling with chaos and craving transformation. And then, like a bolt of lightning, Grigory Rasputin crashes onto the scene. He was a scruffy Siberian peasant who had piercing eyes and a magnetic presence. He was a Stranik, a wanderer, who became the talk of the imperial court by 1905. To some, he was a healer who could soothe the Tsarevich Alexei's hemophilia with a whisper or a prayer. And to others, he was a scandalous fraud, a drunk who partied with the elite and broke every rule of decency. Newspapers went wild. One day he's a saint, the next he's a devil. Cartoons showed him as a hypnotic creep. Gossip called him a seducer. But here's the thing, Rasputin wasn't just a man. He was a symbol, or in some cases, an idol. In Jungian terms, he was the shadow, the dark, hidden impulses that society tries to bury. And the archetypes of the holy fool, forcing Russia to face its own contradictions. Through his crude manners, ecstatic trances, and unapologetic appetites, this all held a mirror to a nation that was desperate for both holiness and chaos at the same time. Let's zoom in on a key moment. One night, rumor has it, Rasputin calms the Tsarevich's bleeding with nothing but a few words. Miracle, trick, it doesn't matter. The story explodes. The court, the press, the people, everyone is obsessed. Rasputin becomes a living, holy fool, his every move interpreted like an oracle. But Jung would say this wasn't just about Rasputin. He was an archetypal breach, dragging Russia's unconscious desires out into the open. The aristocracy hid behind etiquette, but Rasputin radiated raw instinct. The church preached purity, but Rasputin's mystical eroticism, his rumored ties with the Tsarina and her circle, fascinated and horrified everyone. Jung called the anima the archetype of life itself, the inner spark that stirs desire and transformation. Rasputin's intimacy with the Romanovs wasn't just scandal. It was a psychic drama exposing Russia's hunger for vitality and fear of collapse. So why does this matter? Rasputin wasn't just a weird footnote in history. He was the Russian soul laid bare. As the empire crumbled, war, revolution, decay, the collective unconscious erupted. Archetypes of holy fools, saints, and martyrs flooded the public imagination, and Rasputin became their living embodiment. He forced the Romanovs and all of Russia to confront what they'd repressed. The chaos, the spirituality, the raw instinct bubbling under the surface. In Jungian terms, Rasputin was the shadow and the anima crashing into history, a symbol of a nation on the edge of transformation or destruction, depending on how you look at it. That is the story of Rasputin and the Russian soul, a tale of archetypes, scandal, and a nation's psyche cracking open. What do you think? Was Rasputin a holy fool, a fraud, or something deeper? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep the conversation going. If you loved this deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out our next journey into history's wild moments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.